The message arrived on a Tuesday morning when most of Earth was still sleeping. Hyunwoo Kim sat in his office at the United Nations building in New York, drinking his third cup of coffee and reading reports about grain shipments to Mars. Daraba. Work was boring, but important. 3 human worlds needed food, and Earth was still the main supplier. The communication device on his desk made a sound he had never heard before. It was not the usual beep of human technology. This sound was like music mixed with static, beautiful but strange. The screen showed symbols that looked like flowing water and dancing lights. "Sir, you need to see this right now." His assistant ran into the room, her face white with shock. "The translation program is working on it, but we think it's from them, from the aliens." Hyunwoo set down his coffee cup. His hand was steady, but his heart was beating fast. For 50 years, humans had known they were not alone in the universe. They had seen alien ships in the distance, received brief radio signals, and found evidence of other civilizations on dead planets. But no alien had ever tried to talk to them directly. The translation appeared on screen word by word. The message was formal and polite, like an invitation to a business meeting. But this was not business. This was first contact. To the representatives of the human species, the Galactic Council extends an invitation for diplomatic relations. A delegation of your people may attend our gathering at Nexus Prime Station in the Vega system. We await your response. Hyunwoo read the message 3 times. Then he picked up his secure phone and called the president. 2 weeks later, Hyunwoo stood on the deck of the human ship New Seoul, watching the stars through the main window. He was not alone. Bo-Ram Lee stood beside him, her military uniform neat and proper. She was young for a military advisor, but she was the best tactical mind in the Earth Defense Force. Her job was to keep the diplomatic team safe and to learn everything she could about alien military capabilities. On his other side stood Taemin Park, the xenobiologist. He was older than the others, with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. He had spent his whole career studying alien life forms from a distance. Now he would finally meet them face to face. "How long until we arrive?" Hyunwoo asked the ship's captain. 6 hours, sir. The alien navigation data is very precise. We should drop out of faster-than-light travel right at their station. Bo-Ram was studying a tablet showing the ship's weapons systems. The New Seoul was officially a diplomatic vessel, but it carried defensive weapons. She had inspected every gun and missile personally. "Sir, I've been thinking about their invitation. Why now? Humans have been in space for decades. Why did they wait until we had 3 colonies to make contact?" Taemin looked up from his own research. "Perhaps they have rules about first contact. Many theoretical models suggest advanced civilizations would wait until a species reaches a certain level of development." Hyunwoo nodded. But something felt wrong. The message had been too formal, too businesslike. It reminded him of letters from banks or government agencies, not a friendly greeting between neighbors. When the New Seoul dropped out of faster-than-light travel, everyone on the bridge became very quiet. Nexus Prime was massive beyond anything humans had ever built. The station looked like a metal city floating in space, with towers that stretched for kilometers and docking bays that could hold 1,000 ships. Lights moved across its surface like flowing rivers, and strange energy fields made the space around it shimmer with colors. "My God," whispered the ship's captain. "How do they build something like that?" Bo-Ram was taking pictures and making notes. "The energy readings are off the charts. This station could power all 3 human worlds for a century." The docking process was smooth and automatic. As soon as the New Seoul was secured, alien beings appeared at the airlock. They were not like anything from human movies or books. The first one looked like it was made of living crystal, tall and thin with light flowing through its transparent body. The second was harder to see clearly because it seemed to be made of gas or mist, changing shape constantly. The third looked like a giant insect, but walked on 2 legs and wore elaborate clothing. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," the crystal being said. Its voice came from a translation device, but the tone was cold and formal. "I am Zeftar, Chancellor of the Galactic Council. You will follow us to the assembly chamber." Hyunwoo, Bo-Ram, and Taemin followed the aliens through corridors that were impossibly large. The walls were covered with symbols and moving lights. Other alien beings moved through the halls, some flying, some walking, some moving in ways that made no sense to human eyes. All of them stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. The assembly chamber was a vast dome with seats arranged in circles. 12 different alien species sat in the center circle, each group different from the others. Some were giants made of metal and stone. Others were small and covered in fur. A few seemed to be made of pure energy. The humans were led to 3 small seats far from the center, like children being allowed to sit at the adult table. Chancellor Zeftar moved to the center of the chamber. When he spoke, his crystal body pulsed with light. Representatives of humanity, you have been brought here to learn your place in the galactic community. For 1,000 years, the Council has maintained peace and order among the civilized species. Now it is time for humanity to join this great work. The Chancellor gestured, and a holographic document appeared in front of the humans. The text was long and complex, full of legal language that was hard to understand even with the translation system. This is the Concordat of Species, Zeftar continued. By signing this document, humanity will become a probationary member of the Galactic Council. You will be guided by our wisdom and protected by our strength. Hyunwoo began reading the document carefully. His diplomatic training had taught him to look for hidden meanings in formal language. What he found made his blood run cold. The Concordat was not an invitation to join equals. It was a surrender document. Humanity would be allowed to keep Earth and their 2 small colonies, but they could never expand beyond those 3 worlds. They would have to give up most of their industrial production to the Council. Human military forces would be limited to small police units. Any human technology that the Council wanted would have to be shared freely. Bo-Ram was reading over his shoulder, her face carefully neutral. But Hyunwoo could see the anger in her eyes. Tae-min was studying the alien representatives, taking notes about their biology and behavior. You have 72 hours to consider our generous offer, Chancellor, Zeftar announced. When you return, we expect your agreement. The Council has never had a species refuse our guidance. The way he said those last words sent a chill through Hyunwoo. It sounded like a threat. As the aliens escorted them back to their ship, Hyunwoo's mind was racing. This was not first contact. This was conquest dressed up as diplomacy. The question was, what could 3 humans do about it? Back aboard the New Soul, Hyunwoo called an emergency meeting in the ship's secure conference room. The room was small and plain, designed for private conversations that no one else could hear. Bo-Ram and Tae-min sat across from him at the metal table, their faces serious. Tell me what you saw out there, Hyunwoo said quietly. Bo-Ram spoke first. The aliens are overconfident. They showed us everything, like they don't think we're a threat. I counted at least 50 different weapons systems in that assembly chamber alone. Energy weapons, projectile systems, and some things I couldn't identify. But here's what's interesting. All of their defenses are designed to stop the kind of weapons they use against each other. Tae-min nodded slowly. I was watching their behavior. Every species in that chamber acted the same way around the Council. Members, submissive, afraid. These aren't equal partners in some galactic democracy. They're servants. Hyunwoo had been thinking the same thing. The Chancellor said no species has ever refused their guidance, but that doesn't mean no species has ever tried. It means no species that tried is still around to talk about it. Over. The next day, the 3 humans worked carefully and quietly. They could not use the ship's main computer systems because the aliens might be monitoring them. Instead, they used small, isolated devices to analyze everything they had seen and heard. Tae-min made the first important discovery. He had secretly collected samples during their tour of the station. Dust from the air filters, traces of biological material from the seats, even microscopic particles from the alien clothing. When he analyzed these samples in the ship's small biology lab, he found something that made his hands shake. Hyunwoo, you need to see this, he called over the ship's internal communicator. In the lab, Tae-min showed him a display full of DNA sequences and biological data. I found genetic material from at least 30 different species on that station. But here's the problem. Only 12 species were represented in the council chamber. What does that mean? It means there used to be more species in the council. A lot more. And now they're gone. Taemin's voice was quiet and grim. I found evidence of recent biological activity, too. Some of these genetic traces are only a few years old. The Council isn't ancient and stable like they claim. They're still actively conquering new species. While Taemin was making his discovery, Bo-Ram had been working on a different puzzle. She was a military advisor, but she was also trained in electronic intelligence gathering. Using the ship's passive sensors, she had been listening to alien communications around the station. Most of the alien transmissions were encrypted, but Bo-Ram had found something interesting. Some of the less advanced species on the station were using communication systems that humans could understand. By analyzing the patterns and comparing them to human mathematical constants, she was starting to break their codes. What she found was worse than Taemin's discovery. "They're planning to destroy our colonies," she told Hyunwoo that evening. They were standing in the ship's observation deck, looking out at the massive alien station. "I intercepted a message between two council members. They call it isolation protocols. If we refuse to sign their treaty, they'll attack Earth, Mars, and Europa simultaneously." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. "How long do we have?" "The attack is scheduled for 6 hours after our deadline expires. They're not giving us time to warn anyone. They want to destroy our colonies before Earth can prepare any defenses." That night, Hyunwoo couldn't sleep. He walked through the empty corridors of the New Seoul, thinking about the impossible situation they faced. 3 humans against a galactic empire. Even if they could warn Earth, what could humanity do? Their weapons were primitive compared to alien technology. Their ships were slow and weak. The human colonies had no military defenses at all. But as he walked, Hyunwoo remembered something from his diplomatic training. The best negotiations happened before anyone sat down at the table. Real diplomacy was about preparation, information, and understanding what your opponent really wanted. The aliens thought they understood humans. They had watched human expansion into space and seen a young, aggressive species that was growing quickly but was still weak. They had waited until humanity had something valuable, 3 worlds with industry and resources, before making contact. But they didn't really know humans at all. The next morning, Hyunwoo made a decision that would change everything. He opened a secure communication channel back to Earth, using codes that only the highest levels of government knew. "This is Ambassador Kim. I need to speak to Admiral Sang-Ho Yoon immediately. Emergency diplomatic protocols." Admiral Yoon was the commander of Earth's small space fleet. He was an old soldier who had fought in the colony wars and understood both strategy and tactics. More importantly, he was one of the few people on Earth who had been planning for this exact situation. When Yoon's face appeared on the secure screen, Hyunwoo could see he was in a military command center. Other officers were working at computer terminals behind him. "Ambassador, we've been monitoring alien activity throughout the system. We know about Nexus Prime. What's the situation?" Hyunwoo explained everything quickly and efficiently. The treaty that was really a surrender. The evidence of other species that had been destroyed. The planned attack on human colonies. Admiral Yoon listened without interruption. When Hyunwoo finished, the old soldier was quiet for a long moment. "How much time do we have?" Yoon finally asked. 48 hours until we have to give them our answer. 6 hours after that, they attack. That's not enough time to evacuate the colonies or build defenses." "I know. But maybe it's enough time for something else." Hyunwoo looked directly into the camera. "Admiral, I need you to trust me. I have an idea, but it requires perfect timing and complete secrecy. Can you have the fleet ready to move in 36 hours? Admiral Yoon smiled, and for the first time in days, Hyunwoo felt hope. "Ambassador, the fleet has been ready since the day you left Earth. We've been planning for this conversation for months." After ending the communication, Hyunwoo gathered Bo-Ram and Taemin for another meeting. This time, they didn't discuss what they had learned about the aliens. Instead, they talked about what they were going to do about it. "The aliens think they know how humans fight," Hyunwoo explained. "They've been watching our expansion and our colony wars. They think we're predictable." Bo-Ram grinned. "But they've only seen humans fight other humans. They have no idea how we fight when we're really angry." Taemin was worried. Even if we have some kind of plan, we're still talking about fighting an empire that has conquered dozens of species. How can we possibly win? Hyun-woo looked out at the alien station, thinking about all the species that had sat in those same chairs, faced with the same impossible choice: submit or die. We don't have to win, he said finally. We just have to make sure they lose. The next day would bring the final council session, where humanity would give their answer to the Galactic Council's generous offer. But Hyun-woo, Bo-ram, and Taemin were no longer thinking about diplomacy. They were thinking about war. The final session began exactly 72 hours after the first meeting. Hyun-woo adjusted his formal diplomatic suit as he walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime one last time. Behind him, Bo-ram and Taemin followed quietly, their faces calm and professional. The assembly chamber was more crowded than before. Word had spread throughout the station that the humans would give their answer today. Alien beings filled the observation galleries, curious to see how another species would submit to the council's will. Chancellor Zeftar stood in the center of the chamber, his crystal body glowing brighter than usual. Around him, the 12 council members sat in their ornate chairs, looking down at the three humans like judges at a trial. Representatives of humanity, the Chancellor's voice echoed through the vast dome. You have had time to consider our generous offer. The Concordat of Species awaits your signature. Step forward and take your place in the galactic community. Hyun-woo walked slowly to the center of the chamber. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him. Some of the watching aliens looked excited. Others seemed sad. All of them looked afraid. He stopped in front of the holographic document that would make humanity a slave species. The Concordat floated in the air, waiting for his signature. Honorable Chancellor, Hyun-woo began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Honored members of the Galactic Council, distinguished representatives of the member species. Humanity has carefully considered your offer. The chamber fell, completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of the station systems seemed to quiet down. We are grateful for this opportunity to learn about the wider galaxy. We are impressed by the technological achievements we have witnessed here. The engineering of this station, the scientific advances of the council members, the complex organization required to govern so many different species. All of this demonstrates capabilities far beyond our current level. Chancellor Zeftar's crystal body pulsed with satisfaction. The other council members looked pleased. This was how it always went. The new species would praise the council's power and wisdom before submitting. But Hyun-woo wasn't finished. However, after careful study of the Concordat of Species and thorough discussion among our delegation, humanity must respectfully decline your offer of membership. The silence stretched on for several seconds. Then the chamber erupted into chaos. Alien voices filled the air, some shouting in languages the translation system couldn't handle fast enough. Several of the smaller species in the observation galleries made sounds that might have been gasps or screams. The council members themselves looked shocked, as if someone had just told them that gravity had stopped working. Chancellor Zeftar raised one crystal arm, and the chamber fell silent again. When he spoke, his voice was colder than the empty. Space between stars, you decline? No species declines membership in the Galactic Council. You misunderstand the nature of our offer. Hyun-woo stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber. We understand perfectly, Chancellor. We also understand what happened to the other 17 species that received this same offer before us. The Chancellor's entire body went dark, then flared with angry red light. What are you implying, human? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Hyun-woo gestured toward the observation galleries filled with alien species. We analyzed biological samples from this station. We found genetic evidence of 30 different species, but only 12 are represented on the council. We intercepted your communications about isolation protocols scheduled to begin 6 hours after our deadline. We know that membership in the Galactic Council isn't voluntary, and we know what happens to species that refuse. The watching aliens began making new sounds. Some seemed frightened, but others sounded different. Hopeful, maybe, or excited. Taemin stepped forward to stand, beside his ambassador. We also know that your military doctrine is based on fighting species that think the way you do. Energy shields, plasma weapons, orbital bombardments, all very advanced but also very predictable. Bo-Ram moved to Hyun-Woo's other side. Every species you've conquered has either submitted immediately or fought purely defensive battles. You've never faced an opponent that uses deception, misdirection, or asymmetric warfare. Chancellor Zeftar was now glowing so brightly that it hurt to look directly at him. You are 3 primitives on a station surrounded by the greatest military force in the galaxy. Your threats are meaningless. Hyun-Woo smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. We're not making threats, Chancellor. We're making observations. The first observation is that you've never fought humans before. The second observation is that you've already lost this war, and you don't even know it yet. The Chancellor made a gesture, and the chamber's exits suddenly sealed shut. Force fields snapped into place around the human delegation, trapping them in the center of the room. Alien guards began moving toward them from all directions, carrying weapons that hummed. With deadly energy, isolation protocols begin immediately, Zeftar announced. Seize the human delegation for interrogation. Prepare bombardment of all human settlements. But Hyun-Woo was no longer looking at the Chancellor. He was looking up at the observation galleries, where hundreds of enslaved species were watching. The first beings in 1,000 years to openly defy the Council. The third observation, he called out, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber, is that you made a critical error when you invited us here. He reached slowly into his jacket and pulled out a small device that looked like a human communication tablet. You see, when humans are preparing for war, we don't just prepare weapons and ships. We prepare information. Bo-Ram and Tai-Min each pulled out similar devices. Around the chamber, alien guards hesitated, unsure what the small human gadgets could do. For the past 3 days, Hyun-Woo continued, these devices have been broadcasting continuously on frequencies your sensors can't detect. Every conversation in this chamber, every threat you've made, every piece of evidence of your crimes, it's all been transmitted to human ships throughout this system. Tai-Min spoke up, his calm scientist's voice carrying clearly. But more importantly, it's been broadcast on the emergency frequencies used by every enslaved species on this station. The ones you thought we couldn't identify. The watching aliens in the galleries began making new sounds, and this time there was no mistaking what they meant. After 1,000 years of slavery, someone had finally told them the truth about their masters. Chancellor Zeftar raised his weapon toward Hyun-Woo. It doesn't matter what lies you've spread. Your species will be extinct within days. Hyun-Woo looked directly at the council leader. Actually, it matters a great deal. You see, there's one more thing you don't understand about humans. He pressed a button on his device. When we decide to walk away from a negotiation, we always have somewhere else to go. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency. Lights flashed red and yellow. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making several aliens stumble. In the distance, the sound of explosions echoed through the massive structure. Bo-Ram checked her own device and grinned. New Soul to Diplomat Team. Package delivered. All objectives secured. Recommend immediate extraction. The force fields around the humans suddenly failed as the station's power grid became unstable. Emergency blast doors began opening and closing randomly. In the observation galleries, some of the enslaved species were already moving toward the exits. Chancellor, Zeftar's crystal body was now pulsing with chaotic colors. What have you done? Hyun-Woo began walking toward one of the emergency exits, his teammates beside him. We've done what humans do best, Chancellor. We've changed the rules of the game. As they reached the exit, Hyun-Woo turned back to address the chamber one final time. Humanity rejects the authority of the Galactic Council. We reject your laws, your treaties, and your protection. We especially reject the idea that intelligent species should submit to tyranny just because that tyranny is old and powerful. The 3 humans disappeared into the corridor, leaving behind a chamber full of confused aliens, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the sound of hope. The corridors of Nexus Prime had become a maze of chaos. Emergency lights flashed red warnings while automated systems announced evacuation procedures in dozens of alien languages. Hyun-Woo, Bo-Ram, and Tai-Min moved quickly through the confusion, heading toward their docked ship. But they were not alone in the corridors. Alien security forces were converging on their position from multiple directions. The guards wore powered armor and carried energy weapons that could melt through steel. Their orders were simple: capture the humans alive for interrogation, then proceed with the destruction of all human worlds. "Contact ahead," Bo-Ram whispered, pointing around a corner where 6 armed guards blocked their path. Hyun-Woo nodded. "Execute Prometheus Protocol." Bo-Ram spoke quietly into her communication device. "New Soul, this is Diplomat 6. Authorization code, Broken Arrow. Execute." Prometheus Protocol immediately. High above them, docked at one of the station's massive airlocks, the human diplomatic vessel New Soul began to change. The ship's hull, which had appeared smooth and peaceful during their arrival, suddenly opened like a flower blooming. Hidden, panels slid away to reveal weapon systems that no alien sensor had detected. Particle beam cannons extended from concealed mounts. Missile launchers rotated into firing position. Most surprising of all, the ship's cargo bay opened to reveal something the aliens had never seen before: kinetic kill vehicles loaded with tungsten penetrators. The alien guards in the corridor never saw it coming. A precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse from the New Soul disabled their armor and weapons without harming the station's life support systems. The guards collapsed, unconscious but alive. "Move!" Bo-Ram said, and the 3 humans ran past the disabled guards. But the real surprise was still coming. As they moved through the station, Hyun-Woo reached into his jacket and pulled out what appeared to be a simple pen. He clicked it once and it began beeping softly. "Taemin, activate your gifts," he said. Over the past 3 days, the human delegation had presented numerous gifts to council members and station personnel. Small art objects, cultural artifacts, examples of human craftsmanship. The aliens had accepted them politely, as was customary in diplomatic exchanges. None of the aliens had realized that every single gift contained sophisticated human technology. Taemin activated a control device hidden in his belt. Throughout Nexus Prime, the innocent-looking human gifts began to transform. Some contained powerful electromagnetic pulse generators that disabled alien computers. Others released a special gas that was harmless to most species, but caused the crystalline Vorthak to become dizzy and confused. A few carried micro-explosives designed to destroy specific types of alien equipment without harming living beings. The most clever gifts were the ones that looked like decorative sculptures. These contained advanced human sensors and communication equipment. For 3 days, they had been mapping the station's computer networks and recording everything that happened around them. "Bo-Ram, deploy personal defense systems," Hyun-Woo ordered as more alien guards appeared ahead of them. Bo-Ram reached to her belt and drew what looked like a simple human sidearm. It was an old-fashioned chemical projectile weapon, the kind that human soldiers had used for centuries. Compared to alien energy weapons, it looked primitive and harmless. It was the most dangerous weapon on the station. Alien energy shields were designed to stop plasma bolts, particle beams, and other advanced weapons. They were completely useless against a simple lead bullet traveling at high speed. Bo-Ram's first shot punched through a guard's energy shield like it wasn't even there. Her second and third shots disabled 2 more guards before they could react. "Impossible!" one of the guards shouted in his own language. "Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our defenses." Taemin drew his own sidearm and smiled grimly. "That's exactly why they work." The 3 humans fought their way through the station, but this was not their final destination. They needed to reach their ship, but more importantly, they needed to buy time for the real plan to unfold. Throughout the station, alien commanders were trying to coordinate a response to the human attack. But their communication systems were failing one by one as the hidden human devices activated. Computer networks crashed as electromagnetic pulses overloaded sensitive alien electronics. Security cameras went blind as microcharges destroyed their control circuits. Chancellor Zeftar's voice echoed through the remaining working communication systems. "All ships, begin bombardment of human worlds immediately. Do not wait for the scheduled time. Destroy them now." But when the Council fleet tried to respond, they discovered that their ships were having technical problems. Navigation computers were giving incorrect readings. Weapons systems were refusing to activate. Some ships couldn't even start their engines. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Korthon of the Hronix Armada stared at his malfunctioning displays. "How is this possible?" Our technology is centuries ahead of the humans. His chief engineer was working frantically at a control panel. Sir, something is interfering with our quantum processors. It's like a virus, but unlike anything we've ever seen. What the aliens didn't know was that the human gifts had been doing more than just spying and sabotage. They had been infiltrating the station's computer networks and spreading a specially designed program throughout the Council's information systems. The program was elegant in its simplicity. It didn't try to destroy alien computers or steal their data. Instead, it made tiny changes to critical calculations. Navigation systems became slightly inaccurate. Weapon-targeting computers developed small errors. Communication networks started dropping messages at random intervals. Individually, none of these problems were serious. Together, they made it impossible for the Council fleet to coordinate any kind of organized attack. Hyun-woo, Bo-Ram, and Tae-min finally reached the docking bay where the new Seoul waited. The ship's weapons were still active, keeping alien security forces at a safe distance. As they ran up the boarding ramp, Bo-Ram spoke into her communicator one more time. New Seoul, prepare for immediate departure. All objectives completed. The ship's captain met them at the airlock. Sir, we're receiving multiple communication requests from Earth Fleet. Admiral Yoon wants to speak with you immediately. Hyun-woo nodded as he strapped himself into a chair on the bridge. Put him through! Admiral Yoon's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Hyun-woo could see the busy activity of a military command center preparing for war. Ambassador, report. Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Council has rejected our diplomatic withdrawal and is attempting to implement isolation protocols. You are authorized to proceed with Operation Shock and Awe. Admiral Yoon smiled grimly. Acknowledged. All human vessels, this is Fleet Command. Execute Operation Shock and Awe. Repeat, execute Shock and Awe. As the new Seoul detached from Nexus Prime and began moving away from the station, the space around them suddenly filled with human ships. 12 stealth vessels that had been hiding in the system for days, decloaked simultaneously. Their hulls were black as space itself, invisible to alien sensors until they chose to reveal themselves. Each ship was smaller than the massive alien vessels, but they carried weapons designed specifically for this moment. Chancellor Zeftar watched from the station's command center as the human fleet appeared around his stronghold. 12 ships against the entire Council fleet? The humans are insane! But as he tried to contact his own ships, he discovered that most of them were still struggling with mysterious technical problems. The few vessels that were still operational were scattered throughout the system, unable to coordinate their movements. The humans had not come to Nexus Prime to negotiate. They had come to declare war. And they had been preparing for this war much longer than anyone realized. Admiral Yoon's voice came over the communication systems, broadcasting on frequencies that every species in the system could hear. Attention, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Sang-ho Yoon of the Earth Defense Force. Your authority over the human species is not recognized. Your threats against human worlds are acts of war. You have 30 seconds to stand down all weapons and surrender unconditionally. Chancellor Zeftar's crystal body blazed with fury. Never! The Council has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. We will not surrender to primitives. Admiral Yoon's response was calm and professional. 29 seconds. The 30 seconds passed in complete silence. Admiral Yoon gave the order with no emotion in his voice. All ships, weapons free. Execute primary objectives. What happened next changed the course of galactic history. The human ships did not attack Nexus Prime directly. Instead, they fired specialized missiles that spread throughout the system like seeds on the wind. Each missile contained not explosives, but something far more dangerous to the Council's empire: information. Within minutes, every communication frequency in the Vega system was flooded with data. Video recordings of Council members discussing the destruction of entire species, audio files of plans to bombard human colonies. Most damaging of all, complete records of the isolation protocols used against 17 different civilizations over the past 1,000 years. But the humans were not finished. While the Council fleet struggled with their sabotaged computer systems, human engineers on Earth were executing the most ambitious cyber warfare operation in history. Min Seo-young sat in a secret facility deep beneath Seoul, surrounded by the most advanced computers humanity had ever built. For months, Min Seo and her team had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Radio signals, computer code fragments, even the translation protocols used during first contact. Slowly and carefully, they had mapped the structure of the Council's information networks. Now it was time to use that knowledge. Initiate Ghost. Protocol, Min Seo said quietly. Across the galaxy, the Council's communication networks began to fail in a cascade of system crashes. Military bases lost contact with their command centers. Planetary governors found themselves cut off from the central government. Trade ships drifted helplessly as their navigation systems went dark. The aliens had built their empire on advanced technology and instant communication. When those systems failed, the empire itself began to collapse. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zeftar was discovering that commanding a galactic empire was very different when you couldn't talk to anyone outside your own star system. Restore communications. Immediately, he screamed at his technicians. We're trying, Chancellor, but something is blocking every frequency we attempt to use. It's like someone is jamming the entire galaxy. What the aliens didn't understand was that the humans were not jamming their communications. They were replacing them. Every time a council system tried to send a message, the human cyber warfare program intercepted it and sent a different message instead. Military orders became resignation letters. Demands for reinforcements became admissions of war crimes. Most importantly, commands to attack human colonies became orders to stand down and await further instructions. The confusion spread through the Council's forces like a virus. Ship captains received contradictory orders from multiple sources. Planetary commanders were told to prepare for invasions that never came. Military units were ordered to arrest their own officers for treason. But the most devastating part of the human strategy was still unfolding. While Council military forces struggled with communication failures and equipment malfunctions, something else was happening throughout their territory. The enslaved species that had served the Council for centuries were finally learning the truth about their masters. On every world, in every system, the recordings from Nexus Prime were being broadcast continuously. For the first time in 1,000 years, the subject species could hear their rulers discussing them like livestock to be managed and slaughtered. The effect was immediate and explosive. On the mining world of Kepler 442, the enslaved melody workers laid down their tools and walked away from the extraction sites. Without workers, the planet's industrial production stopped completely. In the Proxima system, the Hronix military garrison found themselves surrounded by angry civilians demanding answers about the isolation protocols. The garrison commander tried to contact his superiors for instructions, but all communication channels were filled with static and human propaganda. Throughout Council space, the subject species were not rebelling violently. They were simply refusing to cooperate. Without their labor and compliance, the Council's empire began to shut down like a machine losing power. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zeftar finally understood what was happening to his 1,000-year empire. The humans, he whispered, his crystal body dim with shock. They weren't trying to fight us. They were trying to free everyone we've enslaved. From the bridge of the New Soul, now safely away from the alien station, Hyun-woo watched the chaos unfold on the communication screens. Reports were coming in from across Council space as the human cyber attack continued to spread. Admiral, he said to Yoon, how long can we maintain the information blockade? As long as necessary, Ambassador. Our quantum computers are more advanced than anything the Council has. They can't break through our encryption, and they can't stop our broadcast signals. Taemin was monitoring alien communications from his science station. Hyun-woo, I'm detecting massive civil unrest on at least 40 Council worlds. The enslaved populations are demanding independence. Some are already declaring themselves free systems. Boram looked up from her tactical display. Council military units are reporting equipment failures throughout their territory. Without reliable communication and navigation, their fleets can't coordinate any kind of response. But the final blow to the Council's empire came from an unexpected source. On the screen, a new face appeared. It was Veltar, one of the Council members from the Hronix species. His insect-like features showed obvious distress. Human vessels. This is Counselor Veltar. I wish to negotiate a separate peace for my people. We surrender unconditionally and request protection from Council retaliation. Within hours, other Council members were making similar broadcasts. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy for a millennium was falling apart as each species tried to save itself. Chancellor Zeftar made one final attempt to maintain his power. All loyal Council forces converge on the Vega system. We will destroy the humans and restore order. But when he tried to contact his fleets, he discovered that most of his ships had already surrendered to human forces or declared neutrality. The few vessels that remained loyal were scattered and confused, unable to find each other in the chaos of jammed communications and false orders. 3 days after the humans had walked out of the Council chamber, the Galactic Council officially ceased to exist. The end came not with a great battle, but with a simple message broadcast throughout the galaxy. It was Admiral Yoon, speaking from the bridge of his flagship in orbit around Earth. To all species formerly under Council rule, you are now free. The human species does not claim authority over you. We do not demand tribute or submission. We offer only friendship and trade with any who wish it. He paused, looking directly into the camera. The age of galactic empires is over. The age of cooperation has begun. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zeftar stood alone in the empty Council chamber. Around him, the other Council members had fled or surrendered. The enslaved species had departed to reclaim their home worlds. The station itself was running on emergency power as its automated systems struggled with ongoing cyber attacks. A human delegation arrived to accept his surrender. It was not the diplomatic team he had expected to crush. It was a group of military officers led by Admiral Yoon himself. Chancellor Zeftar, the Admiral said formally, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient species. You will be transported to Earth to face trial before a tribunal of representatives from all the species your Council enslaved. The crystal being who had once commanded a galactic empire looked at the human officer with something like respect in his alien features. How? He asked simply. How did you defeat us so completely with such primitive technology? Admiral Yoon considered the question carefully. You made the mistake of thinking that advanced technology makes a civilization superior. But technology is just tools. What matters is how you think, how you plan, and what you're willing to sacrifice for what you believe in. He gestured toward the empty chamber around them. You built an empire based on fear and submission. We built a strategy based on hope and freedom. In the end, hope is always stronger than fear. As the former chancellor was led away, Hyun-woo entered the chamber one last time. He walked to the center where the concordat of species had once floated, waiting for humanity's signature. Instead of a treaty of surrender, he placed a different document in the holographic display. It was a simple text, written in dozens of languages, that would become known as the Galactic Charter of Free Species. The document was short and clear. All intelligent species had the right to govern themselves. No species could claim authority over another. Trade and cooperation would be voluntary. Disputes would be resolved through negotiation, not conquest. At the bottom of the charter, in careful handwriting, was the first signature, Hyun-woo Kim, representative of humanity. Within days, representatives from 47 different species would add their own signatures. The galaxy would never be the same. Years later, when historians studied the fall of the Galactic Council, they would argue about what had really defeated the alien empire. Some claimed it was superior human technology. Others pointed to the effectiveness of cyber warfare and information manipulation. But Hyun-woo knew the real answer was much simpler.